This is a story about courage, loyalty, and determination. A story that takes place in a time when nations fighting for their interests have only brought about tragedy and destruction. But in the midst of all this, a small light appears in the darkness. The light of a dog. A dog who, despite all adversity, did not give up. Our story begins in 2014, in Ukraine, when a famous Pitbull breeder arrives in the country for his first visit. This is Chico Lopez, awarded all over the world for his achievements in the field of Pitbull breeding. Passionate about dogs, at the age of 20 he decided that he would dedicate his life to finding the perfect genetics of the real American Pitbull Terrier. A brave, strong, loyal and affectionate dog. A pet willing to protect and love its owners until the end, no matter what. Chico travels to Ukraine to participate in another competition. He brings with him his beloved wife, Thais Lopez, as well as his faithful friend and competitor, Copperday. After just a few days in Ukrainian soil, Chico falls in love with the country and its people for the way he is received and welcomed. As someone who had traveled the whole world, he realizes there is definitely something special about these people. But by a sad coincidence of fate, Chico arrives in Ukraine right in the moment of a great conflict between the small country and its neighbor, the giant and frightening Russia. As he walks the streets of Kyiv, seeing Ukrainian tanks and soldiers marching in protest for the country, he is moved by the strength and courage of those men. His admiration for Ukraine grows even more.
We look at the people from Ukraine, we look at the burning tires, the smoke, the people very sad. They feel like somebody that has been hurt, like somebody took their pride. But I saw that they were prideful to stay there and stand up, because sometimes people say you cannot have fear, and this is a lie. Fear will always be factor. The champions have fear, but they go against the fear, and it's your ability to go against the fear that defines your altitude in combat.
Days later, during the weightlifting competition, an Ukrainian lawyer approaches Chico to talk. He seems to be really interested in his dogs. Chico didn't know it at the time, but this man would end up becoming one of his best friends in the future. His name was Nikola Kovachuk.
And so Nikola is a lawyer, and he's like, oh, I'm very interested in your dogs, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, can you sell me this dog? I said, no, I cannot sell you this dog. It's my dog, I cannot. Maybe a puppy. And he said, oh, can you ship to Ukraine? I said, I don't know how to ship to Ukraine. I never shipped to Ukraine. If you really like a puppy, you come to Brazil. I never thought he would come to Brazil. And the next thing I know, he programmed vacation with his wife, and they fly to Brazil.
Nikola spent some days in Brazil following Chico's work, his methods and philosophy. As time passes, their friendship grows stronger and stronger. Nikola wanting to know more about the American Pitbull Terrier, and Chico learning more about the Ukrainian culture and its people. One day, Chico decides he wants to take his dogs to Ukraine, and Nikola was the man he would trust for that mission.
And I was thinking, how can I give him more puppies to take? He bought that puppy. I want to give him as a gift other puppies, but he cannot take. They only can take one per plane. So I thought, I'm going to do these breedings. I have like 5 females. I will breed Deadly Speed, and I want you to take her. We don't know if she's pregnant 100%, but I think she will be. More than likely, he'll have puppies.
A few weeks later, 7 healthy puppies are born in Ukraine. The firsts were named after 2 of the Musketeers, Athos and Porthos. Next came Rambo, like Stallone's tenacious character. On the female side there was Pichenka, My Lady, Red Fury, and lastly Rakata, who was named after the song. The agreement was that after birth some of the puppies would come back to Brazil to be with Chico, while others would stay in Ukraine to live in the country. Athos, Pichenka and Rakata were the ones chosen to stay with Nikola's family. Years go by and the street puppies grow to become beautiful, strong and loyal animals, winning competitions and attracting the attention of everyone who sees them. The secret to such majesty is that they all brought with them the same high-quality genetics of the legendary family dogs of the late 1800s. An elite DNA selected to make them solid and relentless creatures, able to face even the most difficult challenges, but at the same time, attentive and kind enough to watch over and protect the most vulnerable. Anyone who caught a glimpse of these pitbulls could not deny it. These were not ordinary dogs. After some good months in Ukraine, Pichenka comes back to Brazil and leaves the family in the safe company of Athos and Rakata. The presence of these pitbulls made the children braver and more confident in themselves, and the family unit was also growing stronger each day. The Kovachok's family was happier than ever. It seemed that nothing could spoil their joy. February 2022. The news report that the Russians are coming for Busha. Nikola and his family rush to pack their most important belongings and leave the city as fast as they can. They fill 3 cars with bags and valuables until there's just enough space for the 2 dogs. Faced with the choice of taking his beloved dogs or the neighbor's kids, Nikola decides to take the children. He asks for the neighbor to feed the dogs and watch for them while the family is away, and leave the dogs with the mission of protecting their home. For weeks, the Russians occupied the city of Busha, destroying properties, killing civilians, burning buildings and raising fear among the innocent people. The citizens of Busha hide inside their homes in fear of the Russian army. Athos and Rakata, despite being distant from the war zone, remain vigilant, protecting the Kovachok house. After weeks of invasion, the Russians finally decide to leave. But first, they head to residential neighborhoods to loot houses and look for riches and valuable objects. With violence, they break down gates, crack windows and destroy everything in their path. When they get to the Kovachok house, they break down the gate and try to enter, but suddenly they hear a fierce barking of dogs and hesitate. One of the soldiers, impatiently, in a gesture of cowardice, pulls out a grenade. Rakata barking bravely in front of the door, and Athos right behind. The pin is torn out, and the grenade is thrown through the window. The neighbor is scared and despairs when he hears the explosion. Rakata can't resist the blast, but Athos manages to survive. He staggers to his feet in fear, but seeing his sister dead on the ground, he realizes that the mission to protect the house now lies on his shoulders. Immediately, seized with heroic courage, he began to bark at the soldiers. The Russians are astonished to see that not even a grenade could stop the dog. So they start shooting through the windows, trying to hit the target, but the dog does not give up and continues to bark fiercely. No bullet can hit him.
The neighbor says they are shooting inside the house because Athos is in the house fighting them, but they shoot him and they cannot catch him. And so the Russians, they shoot him bullets inside the house, but they don't take the television. The only house they don't take TV and they don't take the stuff is for my friend Nicola.
The soldiers run out of ammo, but the dog keeps barking. Afraid, the Russians finally give up and go on their way. The neighbor who had watched everything through the window believed that both dogs had died. He tells Nicola and Chico, and everyone is saddened by the terrible news. Until one day, looking outside the house, he sees something that fills him with hope. He runs to pick up the phone and tell them. Athos was alive. He had just seen him walk in the neighboring yard. When Nicola and Chico finds out about this, they start to discuss a rescuing plan for Athos. By then, Nicola was already miles from Busha. A trip there would take at least 42 hours. It was a lot of work and too dangerous. However, Nicola remembers a great friend he had in Ukraine. His name was Roman. Roman was a very influential politician who had now volunteered for the Ukrainian army to defend the country from the Russians.
And when they tell him the story that Athos is alive, he grabbed 4 or 5 guys, put him in a car, in a truck, and they driving into Busha. They driving into a very dangerous place. They can get killed. But he goes there, and they walk inside the house. They see no door, no glasses, and they see the bullet holes. And they see Athos in the sofa, hurt, swollen, infection. And he look at them, and he's like, wow, he's alive, he's waiting for the family. He never left the house. He never tried to run away. He was not afraid for the guys to come back with more grenades. He couldn't be so scared not to come back. And he stood there waiting. This dog is freaking amazing. And so my friend crying, he grabbed Athos and put him in front of the car, and they're riding. He tells, sit down, champ, sit down, champion. And they take him to the hospital. They start to work with antibiotics to make surgery and take the pieces of metal inside him, inside his head. And he survived. He's alive.
When Nicola hears the news that Athos had been rescued and was doing fine, he gets in his car and drives a long way to Busha to see him. After everything that happened, Chico tells Nicola that from the moment on, his dog will be called Athos from Busha. He will be remembered as the dog who, despite all adversity, did not give up.
Раз, два, три, четыре. Пять. Пять.
Сідай, а то си попадеш, сідай туди.
The problem is you don't have no gas to get there, so I gotta go by train. But we made it so far.